G'day, it's Mia from Australia. You know, when I'm not busy saying g'day to people, walking out in the bush, wrestling crocodiles or throwing shrimp on the barbie, I love to kick back with a few beers and listen to Sam, Mike and Jeff on Making Fun of MacGyver. You should too.
Tonight, MacGyver's friends throw him a surprise birthday party while Mac mulls over resigning from the Phoenix Foundation. Hey, can special guest Claire Fisher convince Sam, Mike, or Jeff to quit this goddamn podcast? Fingers crossed. Find out next on Making Fun of MacGyver. It's Making Fun of MacGyver, a rib-tickling takedown of our favorite 80s adventure show, Kate and Allie. Now it's MacGyver, starring Sam Jordan as the skeptic, Mike Garland as the diehard, and Jeff Hess as the scientist.
Name's MacGyver.
Welcome, everybody, to Making Fun of MacGyver, the show where we recap, review, and lovingly ridicule every episode of the original series MacGyver. I'm Sam Jordan, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by my two fellow MacGyverites, the Dorothy of the duo, Mike Garland.
There's no place like home, and that's exactly where I am right now.
That's not where I was going. Let's see if Jeff can pick you up. And the Blanche of the bunch, Jeff Hess.
I'm blanking on the song. It's the Golden Girls. What's this?
Thank you for being a friend.
Thank you for being a friend.
And why would I choose that
Connotation. Is Claire our Blanche?
Because the name of the episode is Friends.
There you go. There you go.
So why didn't you use the Friends? Why aren't I Ross and Rachel?
I thought about that, but I'm too old school.
Oh, that's a good point.
And this time, we have another special guest co-host. She made her debut last year on the Halloween Mactacular. She is the proprietor of the Dead Fictional Girlfriends Research Report, an ongoing study to determine which entertainment franchise kills off the most girlfriends of a main character and what that means for the world. You know her, you love her. Please welcome Claire Fisher.
Hello, everybody.
And Claire, it's so nice to meet you because this is our first time sharing internet space together. I was not part of your portion of the Halloween episode, so it's nice to podcast at you or with you or something.
It's nice to podcast with you too.
My hopelessly, heart-throbbingly hot he's and she's. I've gathered you here tonight to pose a query of the utmost importance. Are you prepared to see more great clips than a week's worth of hairstylist duties at Great Clips? Don't know if I said that right, but do you get it? Does anyone else have the Great Clips?
More of a supercuts kind of guy.
All right. Well, are you prepared to see more supercuts and or great clips than a week's worth of work at supercuts or great clips?
You know what those places
Yes.
share in common? You're not getting either one of those things. You're not getting a great clips or a supercut. They're both are going to be bad no matter which one you get.
All right, good. Because we're moments away from Making Fun of MacGyver. It's our 54th episode. And tonight we're talking about MacGyver Season 2, Episode 20. But first, it is our opening gambit. Claire, welcome back. How you feeling? What have you been up to since Halloween?
The usual, teaching English to people and running a volunteer cemetery and blogging about dead women.
Are the people... Wait, I got to make the joke first. Are the people in the cemetery voluntary?
In a manner of speaking.
Is that for real? What do you do there? I mean, if you want to mention
I run a nonprofit cemetery as a side gig.
So you assist with burials for people maybe who can't afford it or something?
Basically, they are free or low-cost burial sites. I'm the secretary-treasurer. And when I bring this up, it's either a conversation killer or a conversation starter. We appear to be on the killer side, so let's move on.
No. I mean, tell me more.
It's a conversation pauser because I'm just like, I got to think about this. This is a phrase I've never heard before. You already bring a lot to the table, and now you're bringing this. I mean, mind blown. But I don't, guys. Any thoughts?
Do you also take like unclaimed bodies and things like that? Like I know they just find people's bodies sometimes.
That it is not a contact that we have with the city where we are located. What happened was this used to be a cemetery that was attached to a church, but the church went out of business. But a lot of my family members are buried there, so we sort of formed a corporation a nonprofit corporation to take care of the place. And yeah.
Oh, and Claire, a few months ago, or a couple months ago, you joined as a patron of Making Fun of MacGyver.
Yes.
So thank you so much for that.
That's the other thing I did. I vowed to start using Patreon more regularly for the creators whose content I enjoy.
Okay.
I added a couple of subscriptions, including yours, and I've gotten to have some really lovely conversations with some interesting podcast people, including yourselves.
Awesome. Well, it's going to be a fun one tonight. So we're glad you're here. Now, last episode, we heard from Christian Enersen, and he lives in Drammen, Norway. And he told us that Aha was not the one-hit wonder 80s group that we pegged them to be. And, we were like, we did some research and we were maybe split on agreeing with him or not, but I think we realized they've been around a long time and they're not your typical one-hit wonder. But I think we all definitely agree now that Norway's own Aha is indeed one of the all-time greatest pop synth bands ever, because Christian has become just our 5th Patreon patron ever. Yeah, so Christian, no, we were wrong. You're right. Aha is amazing. And he's in at that Swiss Army knife level, the top tier, which means he gets bonus episodes, his own liner, a shout out at the end of each episode, monthly video chat hangouts, and the episode of his choosing where he joins us as a co-host, as Claire's doing tonight. And besides that, I think let's give him a little bit of Aha. So I went and found Aha's second most played song on Spotify. And here we go. 30 seconds of uninterrupted Aha just for Christian Enersen in Drammen, Norway. Ringing a bell for anybody?
Is this the one that's actually like a sequel to Take On Me? Where like the couple is still together? I have seen a music video that's a sequel.
Is there like
to
a Tommy style Aha disc long story? Is that what this song is about?
I think it's called The Sun Always Shines on TV is the name of the song.
I tell you, I don't know how to describe it, but I feel cold listening to it.
I mean, clearly it's a song that Jeff and I will never sing over the next couple of years of doing this podcast, but I would give that a listen. I am going to be burning things and drinking beer tomorrow night, so I will probably find it on my digital music device and enjoy some Aha, the B-sides.
Ladies and gents, if there's one thing longer than a list of MacGyver's failed relationships, it is the viewer mail theme.
All right, Claire, it's been a whole new month. Time to renew that subscription.
Jeff stepped away. He actually overestimated somehow the length of the theme, which I don't think anyone has ever done. But what do you think, Claire? Is it too long or?
Well, I feel like at this point you're committed. When you're in deep enough, you got to keep swimming down.
It's too short.
It's too short. He's back. Okay. It's too short for you to step away, go mess with your kid, and come back.
I wasn't messing with him. He had fertilizer spray in his hands, and he's been known to spray into his mouth with those squirt bottles. So I had to intervene immediately.
Does it MacGyver?
There you go.
So, do you have the number for poison control saved? Because I feel like you're going to need it before that kid goes to college.
I'll probably.
Put a Mr. Yuck sticker on that shit, man.
He puts everything. A Mr. Yuck sticker. What's that?
Oh my!
They put on like bottles of poison, like kids don't eat this.
Oh, he's not at the level where he can recognize that. He barely even knows his colors.
That was the point of Mr. Yuck.
So that's a no. 3-year-olds and fertilizer bottles does not MacGyver.
No.
Okay, does not. Okay.
See, what you got to do is you got to make up horror stories. This is what my father did. He made up horror stories of what would happen to you if you drank that thing. So until I was about 10, I honestly thought drinking bleach would turn you invisible.
Well, shit, that would have made me drink it. This shit turns you invisible? Oh my god, like, where do I put it? No, my kid...
That's what Mr. Yuck looks like, Jeff.
Dude, he's not even at that level yet. He's 3. Like, you talk to him, and they're just like, what? Or, well, he is.
You know who doesn't have a vacuous look is Tim K on Twitter, where he follows us and he writes to us and says, I hope your next episode isn't just a bunch of clips from previous episodes like Mac's birthday episode was. I'd still listen anyway. So, Tim, I got to admit, we were thinking about that. That is like that first instinct. That's the hack move to just like, oh, we'll do a bunch of clips and, retreads stuff. But you know what? I'm pledging to you right here and now, no flashbacks. No clip show, no, retread clips from making fun of MacGyver throughout this. So rest easy. We're giving you fresh stuff tonight. We got a guest here. Anyway, guys, let me take you back now to Monday, April 6th, 1987.
It is a week of some importance for my family. Because this was the last MacGyver episode to air while my parents were still single.
Which is the way most people mark time. Like that was the last MacGyver episode before I turned 20.
So is that why you picked this one?
No, but I did note when I was watching it the first time, I looked at the air date and I was like, oh, hey, this was a pretty big week for me because I wouldn't exist if they hadn't met.
That's April 6th, 87 is when the episode aired, and you're saying a few days later your parents met.
My parents met a few days later at a Passover Seder, which is funny because they were Methodist and Catholic, respectively, but they both ended up getting invited to a Seder by friends who were roommates, and each of them knew one of the roommates. The MacGyvering of it all is that my mother ran out and went all over the city looking for like kosher appropriate hostess gifts. And then minutes after she arrived, my father walked in with his leftover Easter candy because he had decided to just make a hostess gift out of whatever he already had in the house. And so my mom said, "Did you really find kosher chocolate?" And my dad said, "Kosher? Why would I bring kosher stuff to Passover?" And somehow he parlayed that into getting her number, and here we are.
The number one film in the U.S. in April of 87, early April of 87, is Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol. And Mike throws his hands up.
I love Police Academy 4,
Why are you doing
Citizens
that, Mike?
on Patrol, Steve Guttenberg, Bobcat Goldthwait, Michael Winslow, the whole group. I love the Police Academy franchise. I will say this. After 5, which was the Miami Beach one, the franchise didn't quite go off the ledge. It went off a freaking cliff and down. Like, I think there was Operation Moscow, or there was City Under Siege was 6, Moscow was 7. Then there was an ill-fated TV series. It probably peaked at like 2, but 4 was pretty cool.
I always have had one question about the Police Academy series, which is why 7? Right.
Why 6? Why 5? Why 4? Why 3?
How do you keep going? No. I mean, like from 1, you're like, okay, this is a shtick, but can they really hang a whole movie on this? And then by the end, you're like, how'd they do 5 more of those?
Like, don't you graduate from the police academy at the end of the first movie?
Right. Yeah. So how could
they did, and then a lot of those graduates from the first one became police officers, then training future academy students, and then you had a couple of different storylines involved and a few different characters. Artie Moreno was in as Lieutenant Mauser, G.W. Bailey was Harris. So you had two different commandants.
Didn't the seventh one, like the last one, actually film like during the collapse of the Soviet Union in Moscow?
So.
And you can like see in the background how there's some damage to some of the buildings from the failed coup.
She's good. She's good. That's why we have her here for this kind of stuff. Now, I did not even expect it to chime in on Police Academy 4. Dismisses the movie, yet has some factoids about it. That's good stuff. I got a couple things. Michael Winslow, the human sound effect machine there. I opened up for him for one weekend back in, about 10 years ago in comedy. He went on the stand-up comedy circuit, and I opened up for him for a whole weekend at the Comedy Zone in Jacksonville. So, nice guy. And also, this is the first time we've discussed both parts of a sequel as being number ones at the box office. Police Academy 3, Back in Training, was the number one movie when we talked about it for the April 2nd, 1986 episode, which we covered in our episode number 21, Slow Death. So that was only last year. When we did the Slow Death episode 21, Police Academy 3 was number one. And just a year later, they come out with Police Academy 4, and it's also number one. That's the first time we've done a sequel like this.
It was a good franchise.
Aren't there 7 seasons of MacGyver?
Yeah.
It does not come back again, I suspect.
Oh, yeah, does it?
Well, MacGyver does, steamroll past the collapse of the Soviet Union, so there's a chance that one of them charted.
So you're driving to see Police Academy 4, and on the way there, you got the Top 40 station on, and the number one song in the country is Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. It's a song co-written by Diane Warren, famous songwriter, and Albert Hammond, recorded by Starship for their second studio album, No Protection. It's a power ballad duet featuring Starship vocalist Grace Slick and Mickey Thomas, and it is the theme to the romantic comedy film Mannequin, starring Kim Cattrall.
Kim Cattrall and G.W. Bailey was in that movie, Andrew McCarthy as well. And we talk about Police Academy. Kim Cattrall and G.W. Bailey were both in Police Academy.
Kim Cattrall, of course, Samantha on Sex and the City, my favorite character. No reason why.
But Sam, you got to give this song its propers. It was nominated for Best Original Song at the Oscars that year.
This song was? Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was the Mannequin soundtrack.
Now, what about Bill Withers? Was he up for writing credits on this one?
I'm not sure.
No, that's too early.
Did Will Smith at any point go slap something out of someone's hands?
No.
Okay.
That only happened the once.
So a few weeks back, we had Bo Rigby and show announcer Vern Sanderson perform a duet of Living on a Prayer. And now, backed by absolutely no one's demand, we've got another duet. Very excited about this. The first male-female duet ever in Making Fun of MacGyver history. It's going to be Mike Garland and Claire Fisher. Claire, how are you feeling about singing for the first time in our podcast?
Well, I was feeling a lot better until I woke up with a sore throat, but let's see how we go.
Looking in your eyes, I see a paradise. This world that I found is too good to be true. Standing here beside you, want so much to give you this love in my heart that I'm feeling for you.
Let them say we're crazy, I don't care about that. Put your hand in my hand, baby, don't ever look back. Let the world around us just fall apart. Baby, we can make it if we're heart to heart. And we can build this dream together, standing strong forever. Nothing's gonna stop us now. And if this world runs out of lovers, we'll still have each other. Nothing's gonna stop us. Nothing's gonna stop us now.
Great job, guys. Great job. That was touching. It really was.
Yeah. That was excellent.
Something.
It is an unbelievable coincidence that this is a duet this week. This is the perfect week for you to be here. I can't remember the last time. And also, you know how I said that Swedish song made me feel cold? This song, listen to it, I can feel the cocaine in my face.
So when I was looking this up, it said that Grace Slick was at the time the oldest woman ever to have a number one hit on the charts.
How old was she when she had this?
I don't remember off the top of my head how old Grace Slick is, so I won't insult her. But she was not surpassed until 12 years later when Cher had a number 1.
Well, that was great, guys. That was beautiful. I'll be listening to that all summer long on my mixtape. And at 8 o'clock that Monday night on ABC, it's MacGyver Season 2, Episode 20. Writer's getting a little tired. We're at Episode 20. And now I hand over the reins of the show to Master MacGyver storyteller, Mike Garland.
Well, gentlemen and Mrs. Fisher, thanks for being part of the program.
There's no place like home. That's especially true if you spent 12 hours on a flight from Central America that gave new meaning to the word turbulence.
So this is a clip episode, and it's all about MacGyver's birthday. And we get to meet some of his friends from the past and present, but we open with Mac coming home from an assignment, turning the lights on and explaining where he's been, what he's been doing. So he goes on to explain that he got what he needed while he was on his mission, did the work for Pete. He starts to unpack his bags. Now, as he walks over to the fridge, he grabs a beverage, and he's thinking out loud about all the different times he's nearly been killed. And at this particular time, he thinks that maybe it was a little too close for comfort. He goes into the bathroom, and while he's there, we see a man kind of coming by the window holding a machete and breaking into the house. A bearded man with a hat. Mac's done in the bathroom because we can't have him dying in the bathroom. It didn't work for Elvis. It's not going to work for MacGyver. So he's out of the bathroom. Any peril is going to fall upon him in the living quarters. And it's a perfect setup after what he had just explained, maybe nearly dying, all these challenging assignments, now an assassin, not Piedra, coming to get MacGyver. The man with the machete kind of hiding out, the suspenseful music building. Man jumps out, sticks the sword in MacGyver's back, and tells Mac that he has stolen some property and needs to take him to where that property is. Mac's not really into it initially, but when he sees the size of the machete, he acquiesces. By the way, we decided a machete is the proper term for this knife, correct?
I'm good with that.
Okay, we'll go with machete then. So the voice of the man kind of sounds familiar, and I say this for storytelling purposes, but if we didn't know the first time around, I don't think we would have put 2 and 2 together. We don't quite know yet who this person is. So Mac, he's been kidnapped, but he's been kidnapped to the Phoenix, of all places. And they open the door and they walk into the room, the lights come on, and surprise, it's a birthday party, and it turns out the sword-wielding man is none other than friend of show Bruce McGill, Jack Dalton.
I gotta say, I've thrown some surprise parties in my day, but I feel like the number one rule of them is not to scare the guest of honor pointlessly and in such a manner that makes them fight back. Because you know what would really rain on the parade here would be if he had just straight up killed this guy who was kidnapping him, and it had turned out to be Jack, right?
And back a few episodes ago, I mean, this guy Jack Dalton's completely deranged. A few episodes ago, they weren't even surprised that Jack would have sent them to a junkyard to potentially get crushed by Murdoch. Like, oh yeah, of course Jack's gonna leave like letters all across the city and have us go to a taxi in a junkyard. What a goofball!
Which makes this even weirder because like Jack's really good at getting Mac to go places. Like Jack could have come up with 100 reasons. Like, buddy, I need you to come down here right. Or, like, you know, he's just being really insensitive to trauma because that was Murdoch a couple of episodes ago, right?
I know. Good analysis, Claire. And random off topic aside for a second, do you guys ever see that Michael Douglas movie, The Game? I think 97 or so.
Yes.
And I think it's all just one elaborate...
Well, don't give away the whole twist.
No? Okay. Okay, well, let's just say...
Walked right up to the end.
Let's just say that...
Too soon.
They take what just happened here in 3 minutes of MacGyver and stretch it out over the course of a whole movie.
Is there a statute of limitations on spoilers? Like a movie that's been out since the 90s, I feel like at this point, those who want to see it have.
I respect people that don't want to hear spoilers, so...
It depends how young skewing your audience is. Like, I wouldn't tell a little kid.
We're really strong in an 18 to 24 bracket. Like, a lot of... Yeah. So if you're buying ad space in that demographic, we got it locked.
By the way, you mentioned, like, pain and torture. Penny Parker back in this particular episode. But she serves a purpose, I guess, throughout. And Pete, he knows that MacGyver doesn't really like gifts, but he's invited a few people that he thought maybe Mac would like to see. We already saw Penny. But she hasn't officially been introduced. The interesting thing was how, you know, at this point, Terry Hatcher has been on the show a few times. We see her, but she's not really the focus of that particular shot. Claire?
Oh, I was going to say that she swoops in and gives him a great big old birthday kiss, though. So there's that.
Oh, yeah, that's coming up right quick here. So the first person we see, by the way, is Harry. Mac's grandpa, and he's shocked to see Harry there because, of course, it's a long bus ride from Minnesota to California. But they embrace. They're very happy to see each other. But Harry's not long for that warm embrace with his grandson. There's food to be eaten, so Harry's off to get some eats. They do catch up later though, and they say that Harry's staying at Mac's house, so plenty of time to talk. Pete and Mac are talking some business, and Mac hands over this floppy disk that all this information is on, and for you kids listening here on the podcast machine, watch this episode and check out the floppy disk. I've got a thumb drive over here that's got like almost a terabyte of space on it. That floppy disk, did that thing even have a gig on it back in the day? Couple, like 1 to 2 terabytes maybe, or megabytes.
Megabytes, yeah.
Megabytes.
Going in the wrong direction.
But
with
anyways, yeah. Sorry, I'm not super tech savvy, but I don't know how much data is stored on that thing, but not a lot. That was the OG hard drives back in the day. So he hands the disk over, and
it was 80 kilobytes.
There's a couple of people.
There's 80 kilobytes on it.
Oof.
The average floppy disk held 80 kilobytes?
The first 8-inch floppy disk had a storage of 80 kilobytes. By 1986, IBM had 1.4 megabytes on a 3.5-inch disk, which are the hard ones, and this is a big floppy one. So that would have been the 8-inch disk. So
there are a couple of people that Mac learns, a couple of friends couldn't come, but they sent their well wishes anyway. And Mac is giving Jack a little guff for kidnapping him, and Penny Parker walks over and says happy birthday, and they make out.
Happy birthday, MacGyver.
My birthday's a week from Tuesday.
and the way, so as they're making out, Jack keeps trying to interrupt and intervene, and MacGyver sort of puts his hand up like, no. And at one point, I don't know if this is Bruce McGill kind of breaking and they left it in, but there's a little bit of a laugh before he says, my birthday's a week from Tuesday.
I didn't notice that, but I did notice as soon as she popped on screen, like Terry Hatcher brought that 15-year-old kid out in me. I mean, she looked great. I think she's wearing like white skirt or something. And like I think about we got Claire on the show. It's rare that we have a woman on the show. I don't want us to turn into asexual Nimrods who she looked
hot.
No,
she
that's
looked
what I'm
hot.
saying, Mike.
Yeah, she was
quite the opposite. I want to remain us and see how Claire handles it, and just be, like I don't want to turn into we got company. Let's put the plastic on the couch. But I thought she looked great, and she's obviously a great looking woman. But she did it again for me there.
Terry Hatcher is the first repeat appearance in the Dead Fictional Girlfriends research report because she's also a Bond girl. So I have seen the woman in a garter belt in Tomorrow Never Dies. And apparently she was pregnant filming that, and you cannot tell the woman is just a gorgeous woman all around. So I fully embrace the Terry Hatcher is hot moment.
Let's just say one more time another reason why you're here. Your specialty is this. You've taken it upon yourself to study the way fictional characters have their girlfriends die in movies. And you wanted to come on this episode because why?
Because there's a couple of interesting moments in this episode with the women in MacGyver's life that sort of illuminate a little bit about where the gender politics was in the writer's room, in the universe, right? In MacGyver's world, what are the women up to? Penny Parker's in this episode. You all, I believe the last time she was on screen, you suggested the bad guys should shoot her to shut her up.
That sounds like a Mike thing. I think Mike went a little too hard on her.
Oh, I'm pretty confident I said that for sure.
When you and that's worth exploring, I think, because when you have a super annoying female character, right? She was written that way. This is not the actress's fault, right?
And I think I said that as well.
Yeah.
Like she plays that character so well.
She was playing the role as written, but there's a chance that either the writer, who was a man in this case, views women as annoying, and that's why he's writing her that way, or he's actually just bad at writing cute. Right, like he was going for cute, quirky, charming, but just missed the mark, and it's somewhat unclear which one they were aiming at.
Basically, a child. Like he's not he's going for cute, and he winds up turning her into like a little child.
Yeah, basically. So there's Penny in this episode. She has an interesting moment, and then something coming a little later. I'm not going to spoil, with another woman we've met before. So one at a time. For your 18 to 24-year-olds, though, we should note clip shows used to be more fun when there was no streaming. Right, because it used to be you hadn't seen these episodes recently, so the clips were slightly more entertaining. So do forgive us 18 to 24-year-olds for not keeping up with you It was nice. It was a different
Yeah,
time.
I don't think they were ever fun, but they were more acceptable back then. But it was still disappointing.
It served a purpose because maybe there weren't reruns, there wasn't streaming. You don't have a catalog of VHS or beta tapes.
This is a financial
season
thing.
One
This is them not having anything ready to go. This is them knowing they can get away with it. I think anytime you see a clip show, and they still happen these days, it's like the writers taking a break or something happened financially. I don't think anyone would think that's a great
But
move.
they still, you talk about financials though, Sam. I mean, it was a one set shot pretty much. It was the interior of Mac's apartment, so two, the interior of Mac's apartment, and then the interior of the Phoenix. But to the budget line, they would have had to bring all of those people in to be part of the show. That was a pretty big cast of characters throughout MacGyver's season 1 past. So I guess maybe what they saved in production budget, they would have spent in talent
all
budget.
those people are in Hollywood anyway. They're all in the area. You bring them in, hey, you want a 5-minute shot on MacGyver? They all say yes. I don't think that's much of a lift as opposed to going out in the woods, blowing stuff up, cars. I think this was a real easy episode.
At this point, you got to remember that, having researched this a little bit, Richard Dean Anderson was exhausted making this show. And by season 2, they realized they were actually killing the dude. He was racking up on-set injuries like crazy. He ended up, like, hurting his back in a way that still causes him pain now 30 years later, right? So, like, any excuse to, like, not make that man run himself ragged was probably one they were going to grab, right?
That was something Bruce told us when we interviewed him last summer, was how it took the load off Richard when they were able to add Jack Dalton into the mix.
Yeah, and Richard Dean Anderson ended up retiring from Hollywood. They wrote his character off Stargate because he couldn't walk anymore. Like, his knees blew out after too many years of onset injuries. So, it was a financial thing. It was also like, let's just slow down the hectic pace of filming thing. And it was a tiny bit nostalgic because you hadn't seen these episodes for a year and a half in most cases, So it used to be a little more forgivable that they had clip shows.
So we last left you with Penny accosting MacGyver's face with a birthday kiss. Mac introduces Penny to Jack Dalton, who kisses her on the hand and then proceeds to hit on her for the better part of the rest of the episode. Jack asks Mac where they met, and Penny references the season 1 episode where they met at the airport in Bulgaria. And I don't have that episode name or number in front of me. Maybe one of you does. But
every
as Penny
time
starts
she smiles.
to tell every time she smiles. Thank you.
And hold on, they met in Bulgaria, but that's also the code word if Mac and Pete get separated for one of them to scream to the other person. Remember that? Falling out of the helicopter.
I thought that was
Yes.
I thought that was Budapest.
No, they yelled Bulgaria. You got to yell Bulgaria.
Bulgaria.
Bulgaria! So they cut back to the episode, and it was amazing to me how different Richard Dean Anderson / the MacGyver character looked just in that year between season 1 and season 2. There was a lot of physical transition between the hair and even his style. So the one thing about this clip episode is the flashbacks are lengthy.
They are.
It's not just a couple of seconds of reference or mention, but it's 5+ minutes per flashback. I will say one funny thing about that, though, is how Mac dismisses her response about the rodeo. When he says, "Oh, you ever been to a rodeo?" and she starts talking, and it was almost rhetorical, like he didn't really want to hear her talk. Just shut up.
Hey, don't ask a woman a question if you don't want her to talk.
I had that written down too. He asks her a question and shuts her up. Like, kind of rude.
One thing about this, though, is the payoff to the flashback ends with Mac joking about the fact that they were in economy class as they were coming out, and then they come back to the birthday party. And then Jack says, as he makes a pass at her, if she sticks with him, they'll fly first class to the stars. Now she wonders why MacGyver's all upset, and Jack says it's birthday blues, and he proceeds to ask Penny what she does, and she says that she's an actress, and then he lays into her more with all kinds of lies. His left eye is twitching like a strobe light at a party. Mac is looking at a table in the room, and there's props and symbolism from all these episodes from the past, including the early season 1 episode where he taped the map to the side of the balloon. There's an oil derrick there. I think I see a Dalek on the table as well. We look back at this episode, I think last year when we did the MacGyver Richard Dean Anderson birthday special, so we hadn't fully gotten through season 1 last time I watched this episode. So now there were some things that actually paid off and made sense to me. And he's holding this map in his hand and kind of explains to Harry how they had sent him to the Middle East, and how the map came into use, and we ultimately get the fun quote from Harry, which is along the lines of something Mac said during that particular flashback.
I guess it just proves that a good map will always get you where you want to go.
Yeah, provided you want to get there in the first place.
Never quite thought of it that way.
Because during that flashback episode, Mac had said something like, a good map will get you where you want to go. It'll also help you get you out of places. So they kind of tied that together.
Not to step on Jeff's toes, but may I say a fun fact about this flashback? Can you guess how it's different from the rest of the flashbacks and the episode framing it?
Maybe this one came from the opening gambit?
No, there's other opening gambits represented. Any other guesses, gentlemen?
I don't watch the episodes like you people do.
What?
I'm sorry.
What is it? What's the secret?
It is the only sequence in this episode written by a woman.
Of course.
Judy Burns was the first woman to contribute an opening gambit to MacGyver, and this was from her.
Wow.
So, it goes back to another thing I care about, who gets to be in the room when they're coming up with this stuff, right? There's a screenwriter, Justin Halpern, who said, if there's only one woman in the room, no matter how kind or supportive the other guys are, that having her there is the message, which is we don't care what women think, right? So, it's not the case that every show needs to be written by a woman, but it is interesting that there's only one in a clip show that's all about showing the best clips of every episode.
That's interesting as well, because in my notes here, and I think I said it in the episode, this is one of my favorite MacGyverisms ever. It's like this fantastic map. She uses it for like 4 things. So bravo to her in addition to that, because the super map is back. Yeah, it's great.
The wheels in Mac's head are turning throughout all of these little flashbacks, and he's thinking about some of the things he's done, and he leaves the party and he walks into Pete's office, and Pete and one of his associates are reviewing some materials that Mac had actually brought back from Central America. He tells Pete that it was a pretty good trip, but that he almost died a couple of times, and the only reason he's still alive is because of luck, that he had no actual role in his survival. And this second guessing continues when Mac tells Pete that he's pressed his luck about as far as he can go with it. Act 1 drops with a big bomb.
But Pete, I'm starting to think I've pressed my luck about as far as it can go.
Oh, what does that mean?
I've had it, Pete. I want to resign.
I'm going to give this episode surprisingly more credit than I thought I would when I knew it was a clip show going in. This is one of your better ways of doing a clip show. Have the guy look back at his career, granted it's only 2 years old, and say, yeah, I think I'm done with this. So I found that kind of compelling. But let me just say this about the adventures or the missions he just came back from. He says he almost died 3 times in Central America. Gosh, doesn't that sound like that would have made a good episode? Shouldn't someone have been filming that so we could have watched that? Why did we just hear about this spectacular thing where he almost died 3 times verbally with a 1-sentence throwaway?
I know, and you wouldn't believe that the first 2 were Stubbins and Marlowe that tried to kill him.
So Act 2 opens with Pete trying to talk him out of it. He's confident that Mac would go nuts behind a desk and that he doesn't really want to retire, and Mac counters that no, he wants out.
For the past 7 years, I have done nothing but travel around the world, getting shot up, locked up, blown up, and all I've got to show for it are a couple of empty rolls of duct tape.
Listen to me. There is no one else in the world like you. You're a cat. You've got 9 lives.
I've already lived 8 of them. I don't want to waste the last one. I want to go home to Minnesota. I want to find someone, get married or something, do normal things while I still have time.
He seems so shaken and so vulnerable there, though, as he's basically waving the white flag of surrender. This is, as you can take a character as seriously as we can here, this is about as serious as you've seen the MacGyver character in almost 2 full seasons.
Can we talk about the fact that his idea of a normal, quiet life is, quote, get married or something?
Or something.
Or something. He's not in a relationship at this point, so he does not have a person in mind he'd like to marry, right? Or something. And I mean, the only woman we've heard him say he was seriously considering marrying left him to become a nun instead. So, like, and she frames that as it seemed like a better bet. You weren't going to marry me.
Oh, and he lives at the beach. He lives at Venice Beach. The world is his oyster outside of his front deck. I've been there. I've seen it. And he wants to go back to Minnesota to find his dream
But he's
girl.
constantly on the run. He's in other countries. He's in Bulgaria. He's in, Central America, having spectacular missions that were not filmed. I mean, the guy makes a good point. Like, I want to just relax and chill with my grandpa on the lake and maybe meet a nice Minnesota girl and play hockey. I'm getting you, Mac. I get you.
I am going to agree with Sam. I think Mac is reasonable to ask out of this lifestyle because Pete asked him to take unbelievable risk. But also, half of these episodes are just Mac stumbling into crazy shit. Like, remember that the one woman with the pregnant woman and the mob boss? Like, he's just walking down the street. Like, he gets swept up in that. So, I mean...
it was Bill Henderson episode.
All right, fine. Here we go. You want it? You got it.
Dream beside me in the midnight glow. The lamp is low.
Yeah, see, we are a clip show. We only reference previous jokes.
It just kind of seemed to me like this kind of came a bit out of nowhere, because we haven't really seen much indication that Mac is, like, on a quest to find the love of his life, or even necessarily staying in touch with women, up till now. And it seemed a little... bit like that's what you've decided. You almost died, and now you think you need a wife to settle down with it.
Well, yeah. After that's clearly not a sane thought. Mac thinking that getting married is going to be the safest thing that happens.
Right?
To him.
Yeah. Does he
But
think there's some sort of checklist or something?
Pete needs him to just settle down, and it's like any breakup. Anytime someone's breaking up with you, you got to slow down. Let's think about this. You got to talk him out of this nonsense. We cut back to Jack, by the way, who's still bullshitting Penny. She notices that his eye is twitching and asks what's up, and he says it's allergies, and he transitions to this story about how he saved MacGyver. But we cut to a early season 1 episode, again, another episode name that I don't remember, but it's the one where the helicopter comes in and like picks up the horse and MacGyver, and I still cringe every time I see that horse flying away on a cable. Like, I can't imagine 1986 PETA loved that, but... we never knew Jack was flying that helicopter, and ultimately we find out, no, he wasn't flying the helicopter.
You didn't think he was flying that helicopter, did he?
That's what he was trying to tell Penny.
Did you think that's the case?
No, I didn't think about it
You
then, but then...
did.
Whatever.
The episode title is Thief of Budapest. That was the opening
Yana,
gambit.
yes.
And
that's the Yana episode. That was the opening gambit from that. Yes.
And so
I do remember that.
Here's some facts about this. You can fly horses with a helicopter like that. I found an article about the BBC from the BBC.
Fly a lot of things with a helicopter if you hook them up properly.
But hold on, we're getting there. I got that. What you're asking for, I got it. So according to the BBC, the Swiss Army is training how to do this last year, 2021. But they were flying these horses at 140 kilometers an hour. And they're trying to get them. They're training to be able to transport injured animals to the hospital within 4 hours. These maniacs flew 3 of these horses at one time, and you could see them all 3 strapped together. They flew 3 horses up at once, so you can fly up even more than one. So the Super Puma helicopter that they're flying this thing with, it can fly up to 9,600 pounds. How many horses do you think it could lift?
With 9,600 pounds, how many the average?
Yep.
That would be about 4 horses, give or take.
If we have 4, I already showed you.
25 horses.
25. Sam, how many horses do you think this Super Puma helicopter can lift? It can lift 9,600 pounds.
7.
I'm wrong, aren't I?
16.
Wait. I want to...
16 horses.
16, yeah.
I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, you would never do it, but could you imagine, like, 16... Like, how would you strap them together? Like, in a big circle? Like, what's the plan?
The next time I need 16 horses, I know who to call.
Now, wait a second. You said the Swiss Army. Isn't Switzerland the neutral one?
They still got to move horses.
And they have who do you think the knives are named for? They have a great army in Switzerland.
I mean...
Yeah, this is true.
Maybe that's why they remain neutral, because they're training their troops to just carry horses and helicopters. I mean, like, what good is that going to do them in a war? I don't get it.
Well, I mean, no one has attacked them, so apparently everyone's afraid of their devastating force.
They also guard the Pope.
Oh.
Like the Vatican. The Vatican has a Swiss detachment that guards the Pope.
Okay. And the Swiss Army knife has multiple
We're crawling towards the end of Act 2 here. Can we get there? All right, so we cut to MacGyver, who's looking across the room, and he sees Kate.
There we
I
go.
believe Kate was the one that he said could stand to lose a few pounds before he then threw her at someone. Also, same woman that I believe he may or may not have had sex with in the jungle.
Yeah, oh no, they did it. And we talked about it with Claire, that when she was on.
Confirmed.
Kate
now.
is pregnant.
Yeah.
Kate is now pregnant. She steps out from behind a punch bowl for the baby bump reveal. She wishes him a happy birthday, and the lump that he gets in his throat as this act comes to an end. Oh my goodness. That is the end of Axminster 2 with big pregnant Kate +8 standing there.
Perfect cliffhanger there, because I need to hear Claire talk about Kate and the lizard by the fire and the sex. Let's take a break here. Let's go back in time and see what commercial that Mr. and at the time, Mrs. not at the time, Mr. Fisher and Mrs. Fisher were probably watching separately.
My parents.
1987.
Marinello.
Your parents.
Marinello, not Fisher. I'm married to a
Marinello.
Fisher.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to reveal that, but okay, sure, it's out there. So let's see what commercial they were watching when this MacGyver episode aired in April of '87.
Having trouble making a choice? Think I'm gonna fail, right? No, nobody fails. Think I'm gonna lose this test, right? Right? Nobody loses. Just talk to me, man. Just tell me, like, what do you want, man? Okay, just point to the one you like better. Point to which one I like. That one, man. You chose Pepsi. I told you, nobody fails, nobody loses. Nobody loses? You sure about that, man? Well, almost nobody.
Let your taste decide. Pepsi, America's choice.
Pepsi challenge, a little before some of your folks' time. I definitely remember it, but what are your thoughts on the Pepsi challenge? And Mike's all excited because Bronson Pinchot, Balky from Perfect Strangers, is it. Go ahead, Mike. Go nuts.
I met him one time. My daughter met him one time. He's awesome. Balky. And then I realized, I remember that commercial from when I was a kid, but now that I'm older and I'm still a kid, I feel like the other guy was also Bronson.
Of course
Pinchot.
it was. What do you mean you feel like? Of course that was the same
And
person.
you totally did that wrong, Sam. You have to say, of course it was. Don't be ridiculous.
Oh, okay. Well,
but no, like I remember going to my local mall and I did the Pepsi Coke. Like that was a whole touring gimmick that they went to malls and things like that. And I did it.
I recently, when Coca-Cola said it was not going to pull out of Russia, even though Russia is, invading Ukraine, my husband said, darn, now I gotta stop buying Coke. And I said, well, if the commercials are to be believed, most people like Pepsi better anyway, right?
Interesting. Did you do a little taste test?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
So wait, you got the Pepsi or are you going with Coke? Have you gotten...
Oh, we're going to get the Pepsi. We're
Okay.
going to get the Pepsi. We're not going to fund any kind of,
I think it's a weird way of approaching the advertising. Like, our stuff is better, is the same but better than theirs. Why don't you just be like ours? I think now people market like our stuff is just different than theirs. But like Pepsi, this Coke competition.
Pepsi came up with this competition to replace the earlier ad campaign they had. They used to market themselves as the black person's Coke when segregation was still a major issue in the United States.
I've never heard of that.
There was a period of time in history where all of Pepsi ads had, black families enjoying the product, and all Coca-Cola ads were white people enjoying the product. And then that fizzled out because we stopped having, legal segregation. We still have some, on the ground. But then they had to come up with a different gimmick. So they had to directly compete instead of just saying, oh, well, we'll just sell to the towns you don't sell to.
Coke, we all know Coke is really old, and it's one of the maybe the first sodas, whatever. But Pepsi is ancient. Originally created and developed in 1893 by Caleb Bradham, and it was introduced as Brad's Drink. It was renamed Pepsi Cola in 1898, and then shortened to Pepsi in 1961.
Rivals to this day.
Still going.
As I told you earlier in the episode, Coke was first bottled in 1894.
Mm-hmm. 1 year after Pepsi was first.
I don't know if it's when it was first created. It was the first time it was sold in bottles, is what it says. So I don't know when it was created.
Well, it was invented by a Civil War veteran who was trying to get himself off the heroin they'd given him for the pain. So that gives us a rough idea.
So we ended Axminster 2 on a cliffhanger.
Yes, and it's a cliffhanger that works best if you are about 12, because you have to know where babies come from, but not understand adult relationships, right? Because if this kid was actually MacGyver, she wouldn't spring that on him at a surprise birthday party. She would call him. It's not like these two people have no way to get in touch with each other. If they have enough mutual friends that she got invited to the party, she could have found his phone number, right?
So why do we think MacGyver is so shocked that she's pregnant? Because they didn't have sex?
because he already ran it through the garden.
Because we think he pulled out in time? Why would MacGyver be like, no way, that couldn't be mine? I mean, does the timeline match up? Claire, this is what we come to you for.
By air dates, this was about 17 months ago, and she would
elephant baby.
Yeah. So you could interpret it as him not quite remembering exactly when that happened and having some questions, or or that he just was surprised because he didn't know she was seeing anybody, or, we find out she's actually married now. I think we're supposed to assume he thinks there's some remote chance this kid is his, but there really isn't.
But we're all convinced that they did have sex that night after sharing lizard meat by a campfire.
I mean, did you see the way she was looking at him when she asked him to share?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is confirmation that they slept together because from his perspective, he's thinking that's my kid. So by his reaction, he's confirming that they had sex. It doesn't matter if he's a moron that he thinks there's a 36-month pregnancy. And it makes no sense. He's going, uh-oh, I had sex with her and now she's here pregnant. So confirmed. Okay. Ship it.
Well, so officially Axminster 3 starts with her saying that this is all his doing and that he's responsible, and he's got more oh shit looks on his face. But she turns around and introduces MacGyver to her husband, Mike. Great name, by the way. Mike, we saw him previously
No. Hold on. Let me do this.
You want to handle this one?
I got a whole big thing.
Because I actually wrote the episode name down.
I got a whole big thing. All right.
Okay,
so she introduces him to her husband. His name is Mike Desmond. And he plays for the Rams, says he's a football player, plays for the Rams.
Titans. He plays for the Titans at the time.
Fake team at the time.
Fake Titans in 1987.
And did that look familiar to you guys? Did that person look familiar to you guys?
Not at first, and then you said something about it, and then I looked further.
He definitely looked familiar to me. We stopped the show, the episode he was on previously, and we talked about him. We went into his background. But let me play for you right now the clips of the last time we saw Mike Desmond, Kate's new husband, guy who plays for the NFL, right?
In March, he's playing for the NFL.
In March of '87, right. Okay, but let's look at these clips. Hopefully this plays.
I want you to meet my husband, Mike Desmond. Mike, this is MacGyver.
Mike, husband, great to meet you.
Desmond.
Mike Desmond, you're the linebacker for the Titans, right?
Right.
Oh, you're terrific. You're having a great year. Keep it up.
Well, thank you. And Kate's told me so much about you. She said you two had quite a time when you were down in San Sebastian.
Quickly! All right! Must do what we must do! We must live together and learn, train together and be what we must be! You're right! Thank you, my friend!
Oh, you gave him the clothesline. Yeah.
All right, so Mike Desmond, is it Mike Desmond or is it a political prisoner, which is how he's billed, from a prisoner of conscience, MacGyver Season 1, Episode 21. MacGyver goes to Russia and infiltrates an insane asylum. And this same man is there as a mute. He's as a mute. He cannot speak, but he helps MacGyver as the brute. And now a year later, he's married in the U.S. and playing for a pro football team, married to Kate. How did this happen, people?
Deep cover FBI, yeah, definitely. That's confirmed. Also, another thing that's 100% legit scientifically confirmed, that this episode sparked the idea for the Tennessee Titans football team, which was later founded in the year 2009. Previously, they were the Houston Oilers. They moved. They became the Titans. That person had to have seen this episode and thought, we got to make good on MacGyver's promise. Titans also, Olympians, they were before the Olympians from Greek mythology. They have a bunch of crazy names that I was going to read, but now I don't feel like it.
That's all well and good, Jeff, but we need to get to the bottom of Mike Desmond. Is he Russian insane asylum patient who broke out and Kate somehow met? Claire, where was that episode with Kate and Mac? Where was that?
It was in an unspecified Central American country, except that they swim across the border and get to Mexico. So this has to be south of Mexico, but they clearly did not want to name the country.
So how do you think she married a mute, insane asylum patient within the year who's in Russia? How did this happen?
Well, I was actually assuming that this guy just has a cousin who looks a lot like him who didn't leave.
It's got to be the same guy. It's much funnier if we say it's the same guy. And
okay,
then one other thing.
Then he was faking muteness. He was infiltrating the asylum just like MacGyver was.
I just like taking it for granted. Like he rehabbed really well and then got to the U.S. and became a linebacker.
In this episode, Mike Desmond is playing football, but the real life guy whose name I didn't write down, but the guy who played Mike Desmond and mute Russian insane guy actually played. Yeah. Played in the NFL, so that guy, real life football.
It's Tim Rosovich. We went through this whole thing last year. We talked about Tim Rosovich already, just less than a year ago when we talked about this episode. He played for the Eagles, and then he was a roommate with Tom Selleck. Okay, at
do remember
USC.
that
So we
part
already
now,
talked
yes.
about Tim Rosovich. Rest in peace. Died in 2018. Big guy. But he's listed for MacGyver. 3 episodes. So he'll be coming up again. And damn well I'm going to tell you the fact when he comes up in 3 years that he was insane in Russia. He was Kate's husband, and now he's Willard in 1990 in the episode
Was there a
Squeeze
rat
whatever
involved at
he
that
is
point?
there.
Or a mole?
I don't know. But one more thing. Tell me what is up with this Russian insane asylum? Because you'll recall that's where also we saw Yuri Dmitry. Yuri Dmitry makes his appearance there. And then in season 2, he comes back again as a character named Yuri Dmitry, but MacGyver doesn't recognize him, even though it's the same guy using the same name.
And all things considered, Yuri Dmitry probably should have been in this birthday episode, too.
Yes.
MacGyver showed up at a Soviet insane asylum and said he was schizophrenic. You think they didn't medicate him? I mean...
Wait. Well,
there's no way he could remember anything that happened in that asylum. They had him on medications he didn't need.
You played some before and afters there of Mike Desmond / Russian mute insane guy. But as he's thanking MacGyver in the clip you played, and he's saying, Kate told me so much, I think I got the vibe that MacGyver's wondering exactly how much Mike knows. So Mac's kind of dancing around all the facts. But Mike says ultimately it was MacGyver who helped save Kate from the bad guys in San Sebastian, and that it's because of MacGyver getting Kate out that Mike Desmond was able to slide Mike Desmond in.
You had to get that in there, didn't you? Mac had to get it in, and so did you.
When they played a clip from the Gauntlet of how they got away, how they got out of that situation, they cut the part where they kissed in that scene. That scene in the original episode, the two of them kiss. She's telling the story at his birthday party. She jumps over that part, presumably because she doesn't want to say it in front of her husband.
Well, and along the lines,
and then and then the next
along
day.
the lines of MacGyver contemplating his future and his past and what to do, Kate wonders out loud to him how he can do what he does, how he bounces around the world, and that she used to think that was the only way to live, but now that she's met Mike, she's going to have a family and she's happy and she wants to settle down. Speaking of settling down, we cut to Jack and Penny again. Jack would like to settle down with Penny, and he's still hitting on her. And it's almost like the secondary plot to this particular episode, the amount of hitting on Penny that Jack is doing.
You see how this line intersects that one obliquely? That means you and I will be spending a lot of time together.
Well, that's funny because, see, I had my palm read by Madame Bourgeois, not the one on Hollywood Boulevard, but the one on Melrose. And she told me that if that line intersects that one obliquely, well, then that means I'm going to move to India and live in a hut on the Ganges.
Exactly. Jack double checks the work.
And that's the first hint we have that Penny has any amount of common sense or ability to compare current events with past events.
I feel like the Penny voice is dialed down just a couple of notches this episode. Like it's a little bit more tolerable.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd almost have to. Terry Hatcher was going to blow a vocal cord keeping that up.
MacGyver's back at the table of memories, and he picks up a bottle of brake fluid and looks across the room at one of his coworkers, and they flash back to season 1, episode 15, where MacGyver had gotten under the hood and got the brake fluid, or I think it was the transmission fluid or power steering fluid, whatever it was. He moved one piece of fluid into the brake compartment so that they could stop the car. Bannister was the guy he was working with, and reminds MacGyver that he went in to save Mac, but ultimately Mac was the one that saved him. And Pete comes over to the guys, both Bannister and Mac, and...
Hold on.
Yes.
Wait, before you go on. I don't have anything to say about it, like, sciencey-wise. I just want to point out that even watching it again, tremendous stunt work. Like, there's a great motorcycle ditch that the guy does. Like, there's somebody on the hood of the car and stuff like that.
And it's very obviously not Richard Dean
Oh,
Anderson.
no, it's not.
You
But it's still,
can see his face.
But it's still really good stunts. So I wanted to give him credit for that. Like, running that clip back makes sense. It's good stuff.
So Pete's telling Mac and Bannister that they really did work well together, and talking about all the different challenges that they've faced, and that everything Mac has done has been a really, really tough trip. But Mac asks about those resignation letters. Does he still have them? And Pete says, well, they're at my desk. And Harry walks over to Pete and wants to know what's up, what's eating Mac. And Pete kind of explains a little bit, but Mac walks into Pete's office and sits down and reviews the letter of resignation, picks up a pen, and Axminster 3 comes to an end.
I stand by the fact that it's a simple, non-actiony core plot, but I like it. I just like the idea of Mac having a contemplative moment here and possibly quitting, and Pete talking him out. They could have made this a 20-minute episode, and it's just, cut out all those flashbacks, and I would have been fine with it. But otherwise, I liked it more than I thought I would.
It's sort of, so, you asked why I picked this one. They devote basically most of that act to him and Kate, and a certain contrast between, her, what she represents being, actually someone who does settle down, which is, they did not foreshadow at all in her previous appearance that she didn't like bouncing around the world, so it's a little unearned. But still, it's interesting that they've taken this moment to sort of acknowledge, is Mac the marrying kind? Probably not, because there's people around him who are leaving this life, right? Who do get out and go do, get married or something, right? And as we're shortly about going to learn, is Mac really going to do that? Probably not, right?
Axminster 4 opens up with Harry walking into Pete's office where Mac is, and he hopes he's not interrupting anything, but asks Mac if he can offer some advice.
Want some free advice? I'd pay for it. Go with your gut. What's up here can keep you confused. What's here most of the time tells it plain.
Sage advice from the wise old
Harry
man.
makes the big trip. Harry comes all the way in from Minnesota. Mac gives him pretty much 2 minutes of his time at this party.
Yeah, but he's staying at Mac's house, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they mentioned.
So Mac goes with his gut, which tells him to sign the paperwork, which he folds up, puts in his pocket, and walks back out to the party. He walks over to Jack and Penny, and she kisses Mac again, and Jack seems pretty annoyed. Then she drops all kinds of knowledge on Jack, and he kind of seems surprised. But she said she really knew he was full of shit the entire time, because in the women's lounge area, there was a memo basically that said, when Jack Dalton's left eye twitches, he's lying like a cheap rug. So kind of the opposite of for a good time call, but it was more like an FYI memo.
I know you gentlemen have been in plenty of ladies' rooms, all right, but I mean, what's the most memorable poster you've seen in one, right? Because there are posters in ladies' rooms, right? But they're usually things like, call this number if you're being, sex trafficked. Or, the Surgeon General reminds you not to drink while you're pregnant, right? Or, reminders of the dress code in some cases, depending on where you are, right? I have never in my life seen written on a wall in a women's room the tell that a guy has when he's lying to you. A specific man. What has he done to the female, employees at the Phoenix Foundation? How many of them did he go through before they hung an actual memo in the ladies' room? But that line is the first good line that Penny Parker ever has. This is where her shtick suddenly becomes actually funny, right? And not just grating and annoying.
She outsmarts Jack here, and he seems kind of ashamed about it all.
Right.
And that's kind of the end of his courting of Penny Parker.
Yeah, I had the same reaction. I was actually kind of surprised, but at some point I'm like, it feels like she's playing him, and then it turns out she's playing him, and that's fun.
Earlier, you were kind of like, well, why is he friends with Penny? Why does he let her stay when she just moves into his apartment or whatever, right? And this is interesting because, he's also still friends with Jack, no matter what Jack pulls. It's so Penny is the Jack, gender swapped, right? So, it adds a little bit of depth to the relationships among all three of them, I think, in addition to giving her the first chance she's had to demonstrate intelligence.
Well, and the two of them are very charismatic and work together well on screen.
Yeah.
And that helps it, too.
After all that, MacGyver walks over to Pete, tenders his resignation. He pulls out that paperwork from his jacket pocket, hands it over, and Pete says he can still remember that first assignment and tells Mac, if this is what you really want, go for it. We'll do it, and we won't try to talk you out of it anymore. And then they flash back to Season 1, Episode 12, Deathlock, and the highlight of that was the MacGyver in the casket, mannequin falling out of the casket, jet ski going away. I believe that was the opening gambit of that particular episode as well, because was Deathlock Quail?
Yes, it was. And I think that's the last opening gambit too.
Yeah, one of my favorite episodes, and I had completely mind wiped that it was from that. I only remember that episode as the Quail stuff. Because when I saw the setup with the casket, I was like, this dumb shit again.
Well, on IMDb, Goofs here, Pete says he was thinking about the first assignment he ever gave MacGyver and references part of an episode from the first season. But it's been previously established that MacGyver met Pete 7 years ago and started working for the Phoenix Foundation shortly thereafter, and that he and Pete had been on a number of wild assignments all over the world in those 7 years, and it was clear MacGyver was seasoned by them. So at this point, I'm getting really lost on what the origin of MacGyver is, right? Just a couple episodes ago we had this, right? I mean, I'm getting confused. I don't know.
Well, Pete basically tells Mac that, okay, great, you're done, and we recognize that you've done some really awesome things, but there's nothing more awesome that you've done during your time here than bringing family together. And that makes Mac pause for a moment, pauses and ponders, and Jack rolls in with the cake, blows out the candles, MacGyver does, and Jack asks for a speech, and Mac wasn't much for speeches. Jack tried to do it instead, but we do get a little sound from Mac.
When I was a kid, my grandfather used to say to me that a fella's life wasn't worth mentioning if he hadn't shared it with some folks along the way. That is what you said, isn't it, Harry?
Yeah, only I said it shorter.
Well, I guess it's taken this party to make me realize that about the only thing worth mentioning about my life is the fact that you've all shared your lives with me. And that I'd never have known any of you if I hadn't been doing the kinds of things I've been doing. And I just want you all to know that you're all very, very special to me.
This is a very, very well delivered. I did edit it a little bit in that there are a couple of comments throughout this episode that there are long, drawn-out pauses, and for the sake of trying to play them back, I tried to cut out some of the pauses, but that is it in a nutshell, and very well delivered by Richard Dean Anderson.
Claire, is that a tear in your eye, Claire, from that speech?
I'm just happy that, when you say you want to get married or something, you can still pick the or something.
What a weird parasitic relationship this is. These are all people he saved or in some way saved, and they're there to that's who he's developing a flock around him of people that he has saved.
I love the fact that they bring trinkets related to how they almost died,
Yeah. And put them on an altar, almost like they're worshiping a god.
Ooh. By the way, just like another deity who we don't really know the true birth date of, in this episode, MacGyver's birthday is revealed to be March 23rd. But other episodes state a different date, like January 23rd, for example. So in the first season, it's that episode with Penny. You see MacGyver's ID. It says January 23rd. We made a whole big spiel about it. We celebrate his birthday because that's also Richard Dean Anderson's birthday. But here's the episode where they say, nope, it's March 23rd, because you see, on the resignation letter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Mac's birthday, official birthday going forward, March 23rd.
There's actually one other twist, though. You see his driver's license in a later season, and it's back to January.
Oh, God.
Does it just say MacGyver? Does it match the DMV registration from his glove box?
The setup is that the woman he's with that episode grabs it from him to see what his first name is, and then says, "That's your first name? I'm going to call you MacGyver."
Fair. So Mac basically dismisses the cake to be eaten by one and all, and Pete wonders if Mac forgot the resignation papers, because he says something about the papers, like, I want them back. And Mac says, no, I want them because I want to rip them up. So that's what he does, and that's how Axminster 4 comes to an end. And if you think we're done with the flashbacks, gentlemen and ma'am, no, we are not. Because in Axminster 5, Mac's sitting in an empty room, and he walks over to a flare gun, which we remember from the pilot episode, and he reads a note from the captain that he saved on that mission, and we actually flash back to the damn episode, and we find Waldo all over again, climbing up the mountain cliff somewhere in Southeast Asia Grand Canyon. And that's that. And MacGyver jokes that, maybe he's having second thoughts with things, and that's pretty much how the episode ends.
Yeah. Captain Taylor said that was about the craziest thing he'd ever seen.
Well, he was right. It was. Pete, about that letter of resignation.
Yeah?
Got any Scotch tape? Kidding.
I just want you to know who has the power in this relationship now, old man.
Don't you wish you had a job where you could, resign and unresign? like just bounce around.
I feel like at my
Depends how
job,
you're
if I
feeling
told them
today.
I wanted to quit, they'd take it seriously.
Probably.
That's when they would throw you the party right there.
Yeah.
All right,
And
well,
one last piece of trivia. This is dedicated. It's an in memoriam episode, right?
Oh,
Before the credits.
Right. I meant to write down the name. Did anyone write down the name of it?
Wes Tansey.
Okay.
Wes Tansey. I looked him up. He was a grip, who handles film cameras on this and several other shows that.
Very nice. All right. Well, we've recapped and we've ridiculed, and now what do you say we rate?
Name's MacGyver.
Well, like we were saying, a clip show is always less fun in a binge watch than it would have been in the 80s when you didn't have binge watches. But, I think the framing device, like you said, pretty compelling, and Penny Parker got a badass line in, so that elevates it a little. I'm going to go with 4 out of 10 mullets.
I'm going to give my review based on the content of the modern episode versus the mass amount of flashbacks. And I think that for the 25 to 35 minute episode that we actually had, I'm going to give it a 7 because I think you saw some raw emotion coming out of the MacGyver character. There was vulnerability, there was concern, there was fear, and then you saw a man who greatly was humbled by those who he affected and those that affected him. So I give it a 7 out of 10 mullet, and one of the best performances by MacGyver that I can recall.
Richard Dean Anderson, otherwise known as?
MacGyver. MacGyver delivered.
All right, I'll go next, and I'm going to surprise everyone because my lifetime average rating is 4.8. But I got, you know what, clip show, I thought I'm going to come in with a 3 or a 2 on this one. I actually have a 6. That's how highly I think of, like you said, the framing device, Claire, the general plot. I love this idea of him quitting, and it does kind of touch on those nostalgia points. I like seeing these people again in this. I like seeing Kate with full clothes on. I like seeing Russian mutes turned LA Titans linebackers. That's fascinating and dumb. But yeah, no, I liked it more despite the clips. But let me also say this about the clips, all those, they chose good ones. And it's still fun seeing that horse pulled up in the air. I don't condone it, but it's still fun seeing that. And the map... and the mapping, some of that stuff was still, it made me kind of look back on season 1 a little more fondly and feel like maybe the stunts were better in season 1, I'm thinking.
So they were definitely more reckless in season 1. That's definitely true about the stunts. So my main criticism of the show is that I've already forgotten that I watched it. Might remember the fact that Mac once tried to quit. That's kind of interesting. But I think if you ask me what clips got played, I don't even know if I could tell you right now. So for me, that's the very essence of a 5 mullet affair. It's just a 5. It's just, here's some nice clips. All right, thanks.
So Claire, we'll have you do this part because we mess it up sometimes. We definitely take your score into consideration, but for the lifetime rankings, we just keep the 3 of us. So we got a 7 from Mike, a 6 from me, and a 5 from Jeff. Divide that by 3. It's an average of what, Claire?
6.
Yes, correct. Very good.
And what was
This one's rated 6 out of 10 mullets.
Let's crunch the numbers. This is where we count up the MacGyverisms, and I don't think we're going to count any that he did in the past. So no MacGyver.
Don't even worry about it. Yeah, nothing.
MacGyver's not MacGyvering this week.
Yeah.
All right.
You learned about chicken wire. I gave you other stuff. What do you want from me? You people take and take and take.
I'm not even sure if I'm keeping that in the show. Honestly, we'll see what the runtime is, but
it's almost 2 hours.
Feels long.
How many times?
We did the song 4 times.
Yeah. How many times did someone say MacGyver? Let's let Claire take a guess on this.
Yeah, it's interesting. In this setting, I didn't feel like it was all that many. I'm going to shoot low, 10 MacGyvers.
I'm going to go the opposite direction. What you think? I think as people had to keep introducing themselves, that it was a lot. 21 MacGyvers.
I admittedly didn't pay attention at all to the clips, but I'm going to guess higher. I'm going to go with 33.
What are you smoking, Mike? What are you smoking? It's 13. 13 MacGyvers are said. And that's counting all the flashbacks.
Definitely not whatever Jeff is doing.
All right, let's see. How about the most make-fun-of-able moment? What was really the silliest thing here? Was it the Mike Desmond? Okay, yeah, I'm going Mike Desmond, Russian insane asylum patient turned pro football player and husband in a year. But what do you guys think? What was the silliest thing?
I gotta go with the her stepping out from behind the punch bowl and then cutting to an act break with like MacGyver looking so horrified. It's like, come on, man, you know where babies come from. You're in your 30s.
I mean, he's helped another woman give birth. You'd think he would know.
I assume he's been. We eventually learn other things about him and children, so he's aware of where they come from.
I'm gonna go with Jack Dalton dressed up as that like swashbuckling Central American pirate or whatever he was there at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess I don't know. Penny having the fortune teller tell she's gonna live in a hut on the Ganges. I guess that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Although at that point she was sort of. She was bullshitting.
She's clowning him.
Yeah, so she might have been making that up just to see how Jack would pivot, you know.
Well, Claire, it's been a real pleasure having you here, and I got... Oh, my goodness. It's a ring at the door. We've got a guest, Claire. Sorry, you know what happens sometimes. Sometimes people show up at the last minute. Let me go see who this is.
Is it Yana?
Every time Mike says
is it Buddy?
Hey, Budge.
Oh, my God, it's Harry. It's Grandpa Harry.
Harry.
Hey, Harry, my man.
Harry, what brings you by? What's up, man?
Well, I was just taking my after-dinner walk, working on my grimaces as I do, and overheard you guys talking about flashbacks. And who's this lovely young lady?
That's Claire Fisher, Harry.
Nice to meet you, Harry.
Yeah, she was on Jeopardy once.
Oh, you don't say. You know, I was in Jeopardy once. And this 40-year-old woman with a death grip was holding me hostage at the Phoenix Foundation.
No, she was on Jeopardy, not in Jeopardy.
Oh, okay. On Jeopardy.
Yeah, and these days I run a site called the Dead Fictional Girlfriends Research Report, where I write about how fictional franchises kill off women as cheap drama and to develop the male characters without having to, earn it.
Is that right? You know, I had a bit of a dirt girlfriend once myself. Only it was my wife.
I'm aware.
I remember that night like it was yesterday. Found out with a simple knock at the door. And on the other side of that door, well, it was the worst pain you can ever imagine.
Mr. Harry Jackson?
Yes.
Your wife, Susie Jackson? Son-in-law, James MacGyver?
What happened?
I'm sorry to tell you, sir, there's been an accident.
Yeah, Harry, I know. It was a painful moment for you, but you did talk with us about this just a few months ago when you were on the show. Don't you remember?
Oh, yes, that's right. I did shoot the breeze with you fellas for a few that night. Sorry about that, Budge. Must have slipped my mind, sorry. I'll tell you one thing that's never slipped my mind, though. The night I found out my wife was killed in an automobile accident. Did I tell you, Budge, about that? Boy, I remember getting that dreadful news like it was yesterday.
Mr. Harry Jackson?
Yes.
Your wife, Susie Jackson? Son-in-law, James MacGyver?
What happened?
I'm sorry to tell you, sir, there's been an accident.
Harry, sir, you just told us about that a minute ago, and we get it. All the women in your family are dead. Yes, let's move on.
Okay, sorry about that, Missy.
Really sorry about your trauma and for your loss, but you did just tell us about it again.
Oh, well, my apologies then, Budge. I certainly didn't mean to gum up the works around here. Yeah, now that you mentioned it, I do recall what you're saying there about me telling you about that night, but it is coming back to me now. I'll tell you one thing that's never slipped my mind, though. The night I found out my wife was killed in an automobile accident. Did I tell you, Budge, about that? Boy, I remember getting that dreadful news like it was yesterday.
Mr. Harry Jackson?
Yes.
Your wife, Susie Jackson? Son-in-law, James MacGyver?
What happened?
I'm sorry to tell you, sir, there's been an accident.
Harry, leave. Please leave. There's some good fishing down by the pond in the back. Go there, tell the fish the same damn story, cast a line, fall in, whatever.
Did I ever tell you about that time I remembered the thing about that I forgot, but I remembered it.
Bye, Harry.
I did. Wait, Budge. Wait,
no.
Budge.
Bye.
Well, sorry about that interruption, Claire, but you handled it really well, really with professionalism.
Well, old men wander in to talk to feminist bloggers all the time.
Any final comments from you, Claire? Like, how's Mac doing on the sexism front? Is he getting better a little bit? I feel like he is getting a little better.
There's some ebb and flow with the sexism over the years. I will shortly be publishing his full statistics on how many women come and go from his life, mostly go, and in increasingly violent ways. But I think it's definitely going to be worth discussing. I note that his is the third family of all the protagonists we have profiled. His is the third in which all the women are dead before the show even begins. So, when we begin to talk about it, we have to start with a starting point. This is a show that didn't want any of these women on screen.
Well, we want you on screen and on audio, and we had it here. So thank you again. Thank you for supporting us, and we will have you back sooner than later, I'm sure.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Mike, any final words?
It was awesome to work with you, Claire, and I look forward to doing it again. And thanks to all of our Patreon patrons who support the program, including Claire.
Yes, let's thank them right now. Mia in Australia reminds us about the importance of being an organ donor and checking in on friends and family from time to time just to make sure they're doing okay. Update, I did check in on Mia. She's alive. She says he's working her butt off in Australia, but she's alive and doing well. Bo in Florida reminds us that making people smile has a real-world impact. And before you call a plumber, see if you can, your own handyman skills will MacGyver that toilet. That's for Bo. Claire in New Jersey, right here in the flesh. She asked the question, why can MacGyver defuse bombs with paper clips, but he can't keep a girlfriend alive longer than 2 episodes? Go to deadfictionalgirlfriendsreport.com for the answer to that and more. Caesar from Parts Unknown, he reminds us that the power of MacGyver even cuts through language barriers and age barriers as he grew up watching Mac in Spanish with his grandmother. And Christian in Norway, the newest patron, who lets us know that Aha, also of Norway, was not a one-hit wonder with Take On Me, as they in fact have had multiple hits over the years and are still touring right now. Go to aha.com. Maybe. I don't know if that's a thing. So, hey, we're always hunting for new friends. Please say hi to us on the social media. Give us an email, maybe, makingfunofmacgyver@gmail.com. Call us on that hotline at 904-419-3310. We'll play it back on the show, guaranteed. And if you want to throw something in the tip jar and get the perks that come with it, it's patreon.com/makingfunofmacgyver. But above all else, please keep coming back because we are going to keep making fun of MacGyver. So for Mike and Jeff and Claire, I'm Sam, and thanks again. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Mike, this is MacGyver.
Mike, husband, great to meet you.
Desmond.